Okay, hi. Today I have Laura Marshall joining me. Hi, Laura.
Hi.
Bit of a change of scenery. We had some technical issues, but booky and on brand. Um, and so for those who don't know, or this might be the first video that you've watched, for the book room, the bookshop that I'm opening, I've asked some authors to put together some lists for you of some of their favorite books within that genre. And Laura is one of the people that I've asked. So she's put together a thriller list for you. And I'm really excited to hear what she's picked. But for Tunbridge Wells followers, Laura's also a local author. So there's kind of a double reason for her to be in the shop, because she lives in Tunbridge Wells and her books have been written in Tunbridge Wells, and so we'll talk about that in a sec. So I'm going to start by asking Laura about friend request, which was your debut, which I have here.
I've got it here too.
Oh yes, we've both got it. So tell us about this, because this was your debut novel.
Yeah.
It was a Sunday Times bestseller.
No.
Which is amazing.
No. I wish I'd known at the time how amazing it was, to be honest, because when it's your first book, it's almost like, I mean, obviously I didn't take it for granted, but it's a bit like, oh yeah, great, Sunday Times bestseller. I wish I'd known how amazing that was, to be honest. But
I mean, it's what we all long for.
No, it was pretty amazing. Yeah.
So your journey to publication, I mean, so you had you been working on this for a long time? Was it one of those debuts that you kind of slog away on for years?
Not really, actually. No. I started writing it when I'd had the idea for it for a couple of years, but literally written a few paragraphs. And then I decided I didn't know how to kind of, you'd go from an idea for a book into like 100,000 words of a book. So I thought I needed to do a course. I'd always wanted to write, but I just didn't really know how you went about it, didn't know anybody who was the writer, just didn't, just thought it's not for me, sort of thing. Anyway, so then I thought, well, maybe I'll do a creative writing course, and that will kind of help me get this idea into a book somehow. So I kind of asked around, and I did know one person who'd written a book, and she recommended the Curtis Brown course. So I applied for that and got onto it. Well, actually, to apply for it, you had to have a chapter and a synopsis, which I didn't have. So I wrote it to apply for the course, really, although I had the idea, and got onto the course. So when I started the course, I had a chapter, I think 2 chapters by the time it started. And then I wrote most of it. It was a 3-month course, like once a week in London, 1 evening a week. And I kind of wrote most of it during that 3 months, really. Wow. So by the time the course was in November, and I think I kind of finished a first draft by the April of the following.
Wow. But it just goes to show, doesn't it, that when you have that that kind of structure of work and writing, that it does really pay off to have to show up and have to, because obviously you were workshopping as well, were you, with your fellow students?
You got 2 evenings where your work was workshopped, and then obviously you were workshopping the others. I think also for me it was the confidence, really, because I had written, I tried to write books before and given up, over the years, but no one had ever really read them. So for me, I think it was the confidence of having somebody say, oh, this is quite good, because nobody had ever said that. So, I was sort of right. I honestly didn't know if it was any good or not. So when I had the meeting halfway with the woman who runs the course, and she said to me, I think some of the agents will be interested in this. It was like, oh my God. So that was what really spurred me on to write it so quickly and finish it, because I thought, God, I felt like I had a little chance. It was like the door was open a little bit, and if I didn't make the most of it, I would be an absolute fool. So I was working more or less full time as well at that time, and my kids were quite young, so I just used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and write. So I wrote it quite quickly.
Yeah, your kids. So, because what year? Your kids must have been young, because what year did it come out?
2017. So they were. Well, in 2016, so when I was writing it, they were 9 and 6 or something. Yeah.
And tell us about the premise of the book. I mean, this seed of an idea that didn't let go.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd just been kicking it around in my head. So the idea that I had was about a woman who gets a Facebook friend request from a girl that she bullied at school, but the girl has been dead for 25 years, or presumed dead for 25 years. She disappeared when they were at school when they were 16, so she's now in her sort of early 40s. So that was all I had. It was just
Yeah,
this
it's a
seed of
great hook though. Yeah.
yeah, which I didn't realize. I didn't really know that what a hook was, or that they were such a kind of holy grail, especially in psychological thrillers.
Mm.
You know, what I know now is that to have a hook that you can explain in one sentence and that can be put on the front of a book is like the kind of golden egg sort of thing. Yeah, so I was lucky that I come up with that without meaning to almost. But then obviously it's all very well to have that, but you then got to create a whole story around that. It's not enough.
Of course, yeah. That's the hard bit.
Yeah.
You know, well, it's all hard. And it feels strange now because we're kind of talking about a book that came out in 2017. So did you finish writing it in 2015 or something?
No, I started writing it in 2000. The course started in November 2015, so I finished the first draft in like April 2016.
Incredible. But since then, you've written more. I mean, you're not on, you know, not even on book number 2 now. You're way down the line.
Well, so my 4th one's coming out later this month. Yeah, actually, I can show you a little.
Yes, do. Have you got your other ones to show us as well?
So this is my new one, My Husband's Killer. It's coming out later this month. I've got the anniversary. This was my 3rd one. I've got Three Little Lies was my 2nd one. I haven't got that to hand.
Okay. And this one, that My Husband's Killer, has it got pink? Is it pink lettering?
Yeah,
because you can't. It's a bit dull on this screen, but it's really lovely. I love this cover. It's really pink and bright, and so this is coming out November.
And 29th of November in hardback and ebook, and then the paperback will be out next year.
Yeah, so I feel that people who don't know you could come to the book room or via the website, and they can start where you started. They can work their way through your collection.
Absolutely. I mean, they're all standalones. It's not a series, so in any order. But yeah.
And before you were writing in this genre, is this the genre that you would read in as well, this psychological thriller kind of domestic noir?
Yeah, completely. So and since my 20s, I think the first book I read that was probably I would consider in that genre was The Memory Game by Nikki French. I did used to read crime before that. I used to read kind of police procedurals. I liked Ian Rankin and Minette Walters, but then I think the first one I read that wasn't a police procedural, so that's kind of how I describe a psychological thriller, is almost the main character is one of the people that's involved in the story, rather than being a detective or a policeman. It's happening in their own life.
That's a good distinction.
Yeah, so it's almost, I think when you read them, it feels more relatable because you feels like something that could happen to you. I think I love reading a book where you feel like that could be, it's only a short step and something like that could happen to you. So that was probably, I mean, I love Nikki French too. They are brilliant. And then art since then, that was pretty much, well, not all I read, but definitely.
So I think you're the right person to come to then if I need an expert in the thriller genre to put together a collection. And you've put together a great collection. Unfortunately, we haven't got all of them here because I am waiting for some deliveries. But we'll show the ones that, sorry.
Well, I would have brought my own copies, but I tried to find them and I couldn't find. I've got so many books in the house. I can't find them. They're buried, or I may have lent them out to people because
exactly. And this is the whole premise of this, that these are the books. The writers are choosing these books because they are the ones that they press into their friends' hands. So it makes complete sense that you haven't got them to hand because you probably have to press them in someone's hand. So shall we start going through your collection? So the first one I've got on the top of my pile, if that's all right, is Erin Kelly, Watch Her Fall. So could you tell us a little bit about why you've chosen this book, what you love about it so much?
Sure. Well, Erin, I mean, talking about the course I did, Erin was actually the tutor on the Curtis Brown course.
Oh, wow.
So it couldn't have been more perfect for me because it wasn't a thriller course. It wasn't writing a thriller. It was just writing a novel course. The tutors that they have could be from a range of genres. So it's just really lucky that the next one I applied for was her because she writes in exactly the genre that I wanted to write in. And I hadn't actually read anything by her. So I read her first novel, The Poison Tree, before I started the course. I was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. This is exactly the sort of thing that I want to write. I mean, I absolutely love her writing. She's a great teacher, but she's also a brilliant writer. You know, I think what's all the books I've chosen have in common is that they're, you know, gripping thrillers and suspenseful and page turny, but they're also like really beautifully written. And I think sometimes there's a bit of a snobbery around crime fiction and thrillers, that they're like a guilty pleasure or a holiday read or whatever. And obviously they can be a holiday read, but, you know, there's a lot more to it than that. There's some, you know, some amazing writing, rival any kind of literary novel, I think, in crime thrillers. And I really love Erin's writing. So Watch Her Fall is like, yeah, like all her books, it's a great thriller, brilliantly plotted. There's an amazing halfway twist, actually, where you get to it and you're like, oh my God. And it's when you have to go back and kind of almost like reread the first half again to see, you know, it's like, how can that be true? And it's like, and you can see how she's done it once you know, but it's a brilliant halfway twist. And it's also set in the world of top class ballet.
Oh, really?
I love reading a novel that's set in a world that I don't really know anything about. I've never done ballet, but I read ballet shoes as a child, like, you know, most bookish, you know, girls probably have, and loved it. So I really loved the fact that it was set in that world, and you know, she'd obviously really researched it, so it was a really interesting glimpse into the world of really, really top class ballet. But just a really great thriller, beautifully written, with some kind of quite interesting themes as well. So
this twist thing sounds interesting.
Yeah, I can't really say any more about it.
No, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, it's because my novel, The Imposter, it was well, it wasn't marketed as a thriller, but, you know, it's the same as with these books. You know, they do have these great stories, but they can be kind of bunched into a thriller genre, and then that's it. You can't kind of escape out of that. But I have a twist in mind that kind of turns things on its head. And I remember when it went out on submission, one of the editors wanted the twist to come halfway through. And I was like, no, it has to be on the last page, you know. So I'm really interested to know about this one, where the twist is halfway through.
Yeah, well, there's a few, aren't there? Have you read I Let You Go by Claire McIntosh?
Oh, yes, I have, yeah.
Again, you can say without spoiling it, but that's got a massive twist halfway through. It's just similar. So you literally have to go back to the beginning. You're like, hang on.
It's true.
Because then you've got to find a way of keeping the momentum. If you've got your really big twist halfway, you've got to that you don't lose momentum in the second half.
But there is this kind of tricky middle section, isn't there, as a writer, that I always find that, like, sort of the first 30,000 words, you know, you've got to keep the air in the balloon, and we have to keep the air in the balloon all the way through. But then you can get a bit of a lull in that kind of tricky middle section. So yeah, to put your twist in there is quite a good idea, really.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the second one, we'll pick one of the ones that we haven't got. Which one would you like to talk about for the second?
Darling?
Yes, Darling, because Darling has got this intriguing cover. I'm curious about it. It's got sort of a dress, hasn't it, with a very hourglass shape on it. So I'm curious to know what this is about.
Yeah,
well, you love it.
I mean, it's another really like gripping, suspenseful story. So basically, from the beginning, it's about a black woman who marries a white man and becomes stepmother to his teenage daughter. And we know right from the beginning, we know that one of them has died and the other one is responsible, the stepmother and the stepdaughter. But we don't know which way around it is. So I really like books that do that tell you something at the beginning, but then the book is leading up to how they got there, or what exactly it is, or something. So it's really kind of page turning in that respect. It's really beautifully written. Absolutely love her, Rachel Edwards' writing style. And also it's quite interesting because it's all played out against the backdrop of the Brexit vote. So it starts, the Brexit vote's just happened. So it's a really interesting portrayal of how it felt to the writer herself is black, and how it felt to be a black person in the wake of that Brexit vote, and how it kind of, although people might say, oh, it was about immigration, blah, 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 and how it felt, and sort of the way it allowed racism to flourish, the result of that.
Yeah.
So the character is kind of going through all that as a backdrop to the story as well.
Yeah.
There's also loads of great food in it because she loves cooking, kind of making food, the protagonist. But yeah, also like all of these books, they're very, it's gripping and suspenseful, and particularly with that structure where you sort of know what happens at the end, but you don't know exactly or how or why.
Yeah, so it's more of a how done it, is it?
Well, sort of, but you don't know which of them is dead and which of them is responsible. So
right.
Switching around, and I don't think I knew. It's a long time since I read it for the first time, but I don't think I knew. It wasn't obvious which way around it was going to be.
And then, did you ever go back and read it after you did know?
I don't think I've read the whole thing again, but I think I probably instantly went back and looked at certain, because then you see which way, so that you can read them with that knowledge. Definitely,
yeah. I was discussing with somebody else the other day where they had Karen Angelico, she picked a relationship story, and it was about a couple in the relationship, but you never knew the gender of the partner. You knew that one of them was a woman, but you didn't know the gender, and so the author had kind of kept you on your toes and kind of subverted your assumptions about how that gender, or perhaps it's the same in Darling, that how that relationship would play out if it was one way and then it was another. So it just keeps you guessing.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. And so the third one we have with us, The July Girls by Phoebe Locke. This instantly made me think of it instantly made me think of like the Sower murders or something. I don't know if it's got that feel to it in the storyline.
It's not about children being killed.
Okay.
But the protagonist is a child, so that might be what's made you think of that. So that's
right.
actually what I really love about this. It's about a serial killer in London who kills a woman on the same night of July every year. But I think what really makes it special, why I really love it, is the voice of the protagonist, actually. So it's all told from the perspective of a 10-year-old girl, which I think is really difficult to do.
Yeah.
Well, but I think she does do it brilliantly. So the girl she begins to suspect that the serial killer is somebody very close to home for her, and it's really heartbreaking. I can't really, again, hard to say without spoilering, but it's really, really moving portrayal of the girl, actually, and also it's very atmospheric, all set in London in like a kind of hot summer, and it's got sort of slight coming of agey feel about it as well, which I always really love in a book. And also just really kind of suspenseful as well.
It's difficult as well to ask you to talk about these books, and then they've all got these amazing twists that you can't talk about. That is the problem with this genre, but we're going to have to trust you that you know what you're talking about, and these are the books that we need to read immediately. So the final one is Fiona Cumming's When I Was 10, which I remember hearing so many amazing things about this, and I remember the cover because it's got that pair of scissors on it, hasn't it? At the cover, it's really memorable. So tell us about this one. Why should everybody read this one?
Well, this is children again, but this time murderous children. I mean, I love Fiona's books. I read them all. They're so dark. I mean, I know her in real life as well. She's like the nicest, loveliest.
Yeah, I know her as well.
Dark.
Yeah.
I read them, I'm like, oh God, this person's supposed to be a friend of mine. But they're also always really full of kind of compassion and humanity. And this one is about a historical case of a 10-year-old girl who killed her parents about 20 years before. And then in the present day, there's a company making a documentary about it. And they track down her sister and interview her. And so then sort of gradually the truth about what really happened that night is sort of slowly revealed. So obviously it's extremely dark subject matter, but it's always handled very kind of sensitively and not sort of gratuitously. It's very, very intriguing. And you know that there's something about the night in question that isn't as it seemed, basically. Okay. It wasn't necessarily the truth was not necessarily found at the time, but you don't know what that actual truth of it is.
I'm trying to remember. I think I read her debut. was it the Collector something?
Rattle.
Sorry,
It's Rattle, and then the Collector.
Rattle, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredibly dark.
Yeah, but she was so I know Fiona as well, and she's a tabloid journalist, wasn't she? She's on the Mirror, and so we have similar backgrounds because we were both on newspapers at the same time. And you know, when you're a newspaper reporter, you're dealing with all this really dark stuff and all these really dark stories, and you're up close with to these stories and these crimes. And so it's amazing that she's put that into books, really. And
yeah, one of the characters in this is a journalist actually as well, so but also obviously having firsthand, you know, knowing that she is a journalist makes that really interesting. Well, again, it's like a glimpse into a world that I don't know anything about. You know, I've never worked as a journalist, so that's always great to have a really kind of authentic insight into a world that you don't know much about.
Yeah. Well, so I wish I had them to show, because the covers are gorgeous, both for Darling by Rachel Edwards and Fiona Cummings, When I Was 10. But they will be on the website, so you can have a look on there. And I just it's true what you said as well about people being slightly snobby about this genre, and it sometimes feel like the more of a storyline and a plot it has, the more it moves over into that genre, no matter what the writing style. You don't tend to have literary novels with real twists and plot lines, and you know, it's more sort of well, it's so character driven, isn't it? But that's not to say that thrillers aren't character. It's exactly what you said. So, you know, it didn't seem right to me to put together a collection for a bookshop and not have a thriller, because everybody likes to just lose themselves in these gripping, fast-paced worlds.
Absolutely, yeah.
Great, thank you so much for talking through them with us.
For having me.
Okay. Well, I hope you're going to visit anyway, seeing as you're local.
Yeah, I'll come and sign my books for you.
And your new one.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks so much, Laura.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye.